Everybody, this is the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee. This is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. It's 4:01 p.m. Please call the roll.
Chairperson Mike Seville.
Here.
Vice Chair Bill Donnell.
Here.
Alderwoman Wani Garza.
Here.
Alderman John Lash.
Present.
Alderman Tim Masiakos. 4 present.
Okay, we have the first item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes 25-0138. And that's approval of the minutes from the PHS&T committee held on February 11th, 2025. Is there
So
a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, motion carried 4-0. And we'll go, is there any members of the public wishing to give comment?
No one has signed up.
Okay, we'll go to the agenda then. We have 3 items. We're going to go a little out of order. We're going to take the third one first. 25-0161, resolution establishing the maximum number of licenses for tattoo and body art establishments in accordance with the Chapter 25, Article 11, tattoo and body art establishments. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Lisa Zepeda, Revenue and Collections Manager. I have an application for a new tattoo parlor. I know we just approved one just last month, but I did get application for another. This one's to be located at 4450 Westbrook Drive in Aurora, which is in Ward 8. Location's approximately close to Route 59 and McCoy in that area. It is a commercial area. And I, again, have a complete application pending approval of an additional license, and that is the reason I'm here.
And then what?
And that's the reason why
okay.
you have it here.
Okay. Any questions?
How many people want to work in this one?
The owner and 3 other tattoo and body art licensed.
4 people.
4 people total. Mhm.
Are they any, Alderman Janelle?
Just curious, do you know if Naperville allows tattoo parlors?
I believe they do, because DuPage County has an inspection process for them.
Because this proposed one's pretty close to the line.
It is.
Yeah.
And it does fall under DuPage County.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And are they currently operating anyplace else?
No, this is the only location.
Okay, are they from the area, or are they just moving in? or-
They're originally from Russia, and that's where a majority of their experience is from. They said 15 years experience, and they had one previous location in Lockport, but it was short-term, and they just wanted to open up here in Aurora.
Are they here today?
They are not here today, but they said if there were any questions or anything that you needed to answer, that they would be available for the committee of the whole.
And the hours of
Yes.
operation will be?
From 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Sunday.
7 days a week?
Yes, 7 days a week.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any further, Alderman Lesh?
7 days a week, 10 to 10?
10 to 10. Mhm.
Wow. A lot of hours. Even on Saturday and Sunday? On Sunday?
Yeah, apparently so.
Yes.
Alderman Lesh?
Has a Ward 8 Alderwoman been brought into the discussion about this business?
Not that I'm aware of. I could definitely let her know. I believe it's Patty Smith.
I would think that would be an important step to take.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion?
One other quick question.
Yes, Alderman Lesh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any more of these coming down the pike? Just seems to be quite a few
Yes.
recently.
I was noticing that as well. We haven't gotten applications for years, and then all of a sudden, I got the 2 this one and the one prior. I did get a phone call just about a week ago for another applicant who has yet to submit an application at all, but he was just inquiring what the process was. So I don't know if word's just getting out or why all of a sudden we're getting these applications, but it is interesting. So
Thank you, Mr.
There
Chairman.
might be another. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Alderman Wani Garza. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Lash. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried 4-0. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. And then the next 2, 25, I just read them both together. Chris? You want to take them both at the same time? 25-0072, a resolution authorizing approval of the 2025 2029 Consolidated Plan Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area Amendment, 2025 Annual Action Plan, and Substantial Amendment 2025-1. And then the second one is 25-0075, a resolution approving the 2025 Quality of Life grants in the amount of $910,773. Chris, take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. I am Chris Ragona, the Director of Community Services. So today I'm going to be going over the two items you just mentioned, item 25-0072 and then item 25-0075. So on today's agenda, we're going to be talking about both of those items, going down the list, talking about our planning process for our consolidated plan up to 2029. Within that, our funding overview. We'll do a little bit of basic overview of the different grants that are available, the eligible activities and things that we can do. We'll talk about the application process and what was a record number of applications received across all of our grants. Then we'll go over the recommendations, look at some project profiles from 2024, and then certainly open the door for questions and discussion. So there's a lot on this slide, but I do like to bring it up every year. The residents that we serve, not every grant can fund every project. It is the goal of the community development staff to figure out how to best maximize our dollars based on the limitations that we have spread across our different grants. So on the left side, we have our community development block grant. This is an entitlement from the federal government. This program's been around since 1974. For over 50 years. This is among the most flexible grants that the federal government offers. So we can do all sorts of things. We can preserve and expand affordable housing. We can assist our seniors. We can make capital improvements for nonprofits. We can fund economic development, job training, things like that. Generally, this program is based on the income of the individual or the household. And for clarification, a four-person household earning at about $90,000 would qualify for most of the activities that we fund. In the center, we have our Quality of Life grant program. This is funded almost entirely from the city's casino gaming tax. We have 6 broad categories that we've had over the last several years. And most of our applications fit within these 6 categories. From time to time, we do consider different activities on a case-by-case basis. What's nice about this is we sort of create the rules, policies, and procedures. We are not limited by the federal government rules. And then on the right side, we have our home ARP. This was a single-time allocation given to us through the American Rescue Plan a few years back. With this grant, we are bound to serve basically those who are homeless or on the verge of homelessness. So as you can see, these various QPs or qualifying populations, as we call them, it's generally assisting those who are literally homeless or those who are on the verge. 2 that are not mentioned, we have our Home Investment Partnerships Program. That's the city's main funding for preserving and expanding affordable housing. That one, again, is bound by income. We can really only conduct affordable housing activities, so that could be construction of new housing, preservation, rehab, and potentially some down payment assistance and even some rental assistance in some cases. And then one more that we'll talk about. This is the first year the city has funded the One Aurora Affordable Housing Fund. So we'll be going over sort of the actions that we took to arrive at our recommendations and who might be eligible for those programs. So back to the consolidated plan. What is it? It guides how the Department of Housing and Urban Development entitlement funding is used over the next 5 years based on engagement and data analysis. So the last time we did this was in the fall of 2019 and then early winter of 2020. City Council approved that at the beginning of February, and then the pandemic hit about 30 days later. So unfortunately, our playbook for 2020 to 2024 changed quite dramatically to the point where we really redid most of our recommendations and went a different path over the last several years. We're hoping that's not going to be the case for the next 5 years, and we can accomplish some things that are listed in the plan. So the actions taken, similar to when I presented on the affordable housing plan, significant research and analysis, and lots of stakeholder engagement. Since a lot of the stakeholder engagement was fairly new and applied to the con plan, as we call it. We recycled a lot of that information because I think it was a good fit for the plan. So like I said, we conducted individual and stakeholder interviews, several focus groups representing 65 organizations. These focus groups touched on housing affordability, homelessness, persons with disabilities, senior assistance, youth education, and then finally, community and economic development. On the right side of the slide, you can see our top priorities, which were similar to the last 5-year plan. The first being expand and maintain the affordable housing stock, ensure the housing stock is safe, healthy, and accessible, public service assistance, and finally, enhance and improve access to amenities. We wanted to keep these top priorities broad because 5 years is a long time, and given what happened with our last 5-year plan, we want to remain flexible. So here are the action steps and approval process taken. I would like to highlight the 6 focus groups in the second row. 5 years ago, we had all of these in person and averaged between 8 and 12 attendees. This year, we chose to do it virtually, and in some sessions had 40 to 50 members present, all contributing. So I felt that was a major improvement. Same thing with the open houses. In the past, we have had all of those in person. We chose to have one virtually, just in case folks weren't able to make it out. And if anyone attended the night we held one of the in-person was not a major snowstorm, but enough to get some snow on the streets. So I think more people attended that one virtually. On top of that, we have our required public hearing, which took place on January 24th. We met with our block grant working committee back in February. And here we are at the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee on February 25th. So when it comes to planning, Community Services has done quite a bit of planning. So I wanted to highlight a few other plans that will complement the consolidated plan. So on the top right, we have our Elevating Aging in Community. This was conducted in consultation with Katrina Boatwright, our Senior and Disabilities Manager. That was done in 2023. On the bottom left, the Home Investment Partnerships American Rescue Plan. That was also conducted in 2023, and that plan highlighted those who are homeless or on the verge of homelessness. And that was our allocation and implementation plan. In the center, we have our affordable housing strategy. This was completed last year, and I presented back to City Council, I believe, towards the end of the summer. And then on the bottom right, we are working in consultation with our innovation division, strategies for preventing and ending homelessness. So that plan is in its final stages of completion, so we'll be hoping to roll that out later this year. One other note on these: with the launch of the new website, we are going to be making sure that the most updated version of these plans and links are still active. So when we upload this plan into Legistar, you will all have the links to each of these plans that are available. In addition to planning, we have several resource guides that we update on a regular basis. So on the top left, any nonprofit entity that is being recommended for funding today will be included in our Community Development Division resource guide. It'll provide a brief overview of what the agency does, contact information, website. On the top right is our emergency resource guide. So this is more for basic needs. If you need food, shelter, potentially rental assistance, that's going to be your guide. On the bottom left, I know that's the 2023 Senior Resource Guide. We do have the 2025 guide at the printer, and that should be ready to go here any day. And then on the bottom right, we have Simon Rodriguez's Youth Resource Guide. And once again, we'll be checking all of these links, so they're going to be active in preparation for next week's Committee of the Whole meeting. So we talked about the planning. At the same time, we did have to start planning to recommend projects and proposals. We started that process in early August. Our goal was to try and reach out to as many qualifying agencies as possible. So we reached out via email, through our community resource team, social media posts, newspapers, anything we could do to try and get the word out. Any emails that were bounced back, we tried to follow up to see if there was a new person in that place, or if the nonprofit entity was still active. We also had a virtual workshop, which we recorded. We had, I think, close at our peak to 100 folks on that. It went over the basic eligibilities and overview of all of the opportunities that we had. And then after that, any new applicant who has not applied in the last 3 years, we require to meet with us. So that could have been a site visit to their facility, meeting with their executive leadership, and further understanding what they were trying to do to determine if they were going to have a competitive application. All applications were due on October 4th, and Community Services really did some heavy lifting here. My colleagues Amy and Adam are here, Amy Monroe and Adam Grubbs. There was a lot of applications to work through this year. Our goal was to try and be as fair and transparent as possible. We know even grants as small as $5,000 can go a really, really long way, and we wanted to make sure that we triple and quadruple check some of these applications to make sure we didn't miss anything. As I mentioned, we met with our block grant working committee, and here we are today in February. So before we get into the recommendations, here is our estimated City of Aurora total funding. So our first type, community development block grant, that's received on an annual basis with our availability around $1.4 million. Take a look here. Our annual allocation is around 1.2, so we were carrying over a couple $100,000, generally in contingencies. The next one is our Home Investment Partnerships Program at $2.9 million. When you're developing affordable housing, sometimes the planning and underwriting and securing of other funds can take several years. That's why this number looks very high. We will be doing a request for proposal on a portion of these funds, which I'll cover later in the presentation. But it's not unheard of to have a few years worth of funding on hand, as you meticulously go through what could be a $15, $20, or $25 million project. For Home Investment Partnerships American Rescue Plan, we have about $1 million left of the 2.7 that we received as a single-time allocation. We recently allocated a significant portion of those funds last summer, so many of our folks who are assisting those who are homeless or on the verge of homelessness have active agreements with us, and this money will not expire until September 30th, 2030. So we have quite a bit of time, and we are trying to invest those dollars wisely. For quality of life, we have $1.1 million. As I mentioned, this is primarily made up from the city's gaming tax, and the vast majority of that has been recommended for approval today. The Aurora 1 Affordable Housing Fund, this was recently approved and is the first time it's in our budget for 2025. We have $500,000, and like I mentioned before, we have a few programs in design that I'll be talking about at the end of the presentation. And then one more grant, or two grants rather. Our grant writer applied to the state of Illinois for something called Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Shelter Expansion Funds. These funds were part of the 2020 CARES Act a while back, and the city will act as the recipient of the funds, but we are partnering with Hesed House and Mutual Ground on expanding and modernizing their shelters. So our grand total of estimated funding available is 10.6. Certainly, these are estimates. We are factoring in what we think we're going to get for 2025, but those numbers have not been released just yet. So our first set of applications was for our 2025 CDBG request. We had 14 projects apply, and we are looking at funding 10 of those projects. Key highlights are for homelessness assistance, domestic violence, senior assistance, child advocacy, job training, single-family rehab, so think of the programs we funded in the past through the Neighbor Project and Rebuilding Together Aurora, and then assistance for a few public facilities. And this is for accessibility, masonry repair, and a parking lot replacement. We are recommending $1.4 million in funds. And just to give you a brief overview of what we did, this is not just for CDBG, but this is for all of our proposals. We looked at the completeness and quality of the application, the budget and leveraging of other sources, grant management experience, past performance, ability to carry on with reduced funds, performance metrics, duplication of services, and their ability to serve Aurora residents. We know that many of our agencies have different service areas. Some serve all of the western suburbs, while some serve a specific school district. We really took a hard look at that to make sure what they were asking for was not more than the percentage of clients that they were serving from Aurora. Moving on to quality of life, as I mentioned, this is the most applications and funded projects that we've done, at least since I've been here, with 64 total projects applied for and recommending 50 funded projects. Once again, completeness and quality, budget and leveraging, grant management, past performance, reduced funds. We conducted good standing checks both at the federal and state level. We had our finance team look at the audits to make sure that everyone was in good standing, and really looked at their ability to serve Aurora residents. And then certainly past performance. So we're recommending $910,000, $773,000. A much smaller amount for 2025 home ARP. We had 3 total projects applied with 2 funded projects recommended for today. These 2 activities were previously approved last year. It's more to increase their budgets. So one is for an emergency rental assistance program, and the other is to further fair housing. And like I said, in 2024, we funded well over $1 million for many of our service providers, serving those who are homeless or on the verge of homelessness. So this was expected to get a smaller number of applicants. So when you look at the full summary, we had 85 total projects applied with 63 funded projects recommended for today at roughly $6,051,842. With all of those recommendations, we know that there is still work to be done. So as you can see, we have more funding available for other projects. With CDBG, we usually hold back a portion somewhere between $50,000 and $150,000. This could be for potential change orders. This could be if our rehab programs potentially run out of money faster than we thought they were going to. We have the ability to increase their budgets with this contingency dollars. As I mentioned, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, we are always actively looking at large developments, trying to leverage these dollars as gap financing for preserving and expanding affordable housing. The Home ARP dollars, we have until 2030 to expend, and a big portion of those dollars are already under signed contract. So as those dollars are expended, we will revisit this grant. For quality of life, there's $226,000 and some change left. Our goal is to release a request for proposal for after-school activities in the fall of 2025. So we'll be working hopefully in the next 30 days to release that request for proposal. And then the Aurora One Affordable Housing Fund, we have $500,000, and I'll be talking a little bit about our plan for that. So let's look at some success stories and quick highlights. We have several, so I'll go through these pretty quick. The first, I've been talking about this project for a couple years. Lincoln and Todd is finally complete. So we got 36 affordable units, income ranges between $16,000 and $65,000. This site is 100% leased up, so we're very happy about that. And then same thing with the Todd School. Smaller number of units, 11, but it is 100% leased up. This one also includes a public health facility, which is managed by VNA Healthcare. The Alive Center, a recipient of quality of life in the amount of $11,500. These small amounts can leverage into a bigger impact. We've heard that from our partners. While more funding is key, many of them recognize that when you have a record number of applicants, it's our job to do the best that we can to allocate the funding. And in the instance of the Alive Center, $11,500 was probably within the bottom 2/3 of allocated dollars, but a small amount can leverage a bigger impact. Same thing for Spark. they were one of our top dollar recipients for quality of life in the amount of $25,000. This was a gateway to early childhood programs. Here are a couple examples of capital improvements. So we partnered with the Fox Valley Park District on a couple of projects. First, repaving their walking path, and then secondly, installing a splash pad. What's nice about these is we have paid for the initial investment, but Fox Valley Park District will be maintaining these for the life of the projects.
That's in May Park, right?
What's that?
It's in Walters Park.
Correct, Walters Park.
Yeah.
And then Jennings Terrace, we were able to provide $100,000 to repave their parking lot. There are many folks with wheelchairs and walkers, and their driveways were in pretty rough shape, so we were able to repave those.
Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Lash.
Are these used with funds that have to be allocated for capital projects specifically? I know CDBG comes for both operational and capital.
Certainly. So there are a couple of thresholds that we look at. The first is our administration and planning. So the city can spend up to 20% of our annual allocation. The second allocation is our public service cap. We can only spend 15% of our annual allocation. That's around $200,000. The rest of the money can be divided up with projects such as these. So we can do capital improvements, we can do economic development, we can do housing. It all depends on, what's located in our consolidated plan as well as viable projects. So in these instances, these are two examples of capital projects.
Thank you.
Another project profile, Hesed House has been one of our best partners over the last several years or so. As we can see, total funds awarded since 2020 is close to $3 million. Currently, we are partnering with them on a number of different activities. So with our home ARP, we are paying for substance abuse counselors directly on site at Hesed House, as well as a housing search consultant. I talked about the state DCEO grant to expand their family shelter. And then for 2025, we have case management as well as repaving their parking lot on their main campus. For Mutual Ground, once again, one of our best partners, funds awarded $2.7 million. For home ARP, we've provided funding to their clients for emergency rental assistance as well as a consultant for housing search. We talked about the state DCEO grant to expand their family shelter. And then for 2025, we are recommending $50,000 for case management. For Loaves and Fishes, another project profile, we are providing $150,000 for emergency rental assistance. Their project got started in around the summer of 2024, so we've assisted 5 households. What I'm proud of with this program for emergency rental assistance is this isn't a Band-Aid. We partner with Loaves and Fishes to find households in need that have fallen behind on their rent because of a medical issue or a potential job loss or another unexpected expense. They have to demonstrate that they can make future rent payments, so we're not in the same situation in 3 months. And I think that that's been pretty successful.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Are these dollars also available for temporary hotel housing, or is it only rental assistance and proving that they can get out of the hole?
So for this particular activity, it's only for emergency rental assistance. However, the home ARP program would allow for something like that. It's pretty generous in the supportive services that we could potentially fund, all the way up to new construction rental housing. So there's a pretty large list of supportive services. For this specific instance, though, emergency rental assistance is just for rent arrears. We, at this time, haven't decided to pay for future rent.
It just seems like a big dollar amount. Is it 5 households for $25,000 total, or 5 households receive $25,000 each?
So that's total. Within our policies
Okay.
and procedures, we have maximum limits. If someone comes in and needs, $30,000 in back rent, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to assist there. Our max limits are based on their bedroom size up to 3 months of back rent. So I think somewhere around $5,000 is the maximum that they'd be able to get. They also need to prove that they're in good standing with the city.
Thank you.
Another project profile was our affordable housing strategy. That is attached as an exhibit to the 5-year plan. We will be reporting on the performance measures over the next 5 years on the 9 recommendations that we came up with. We started with 23 and then broke that down to 9 with the One Aurora logo to optimize, navigate, and empower. Something else we're working on is our grant management software. We're hoping that this will be launched probably within the next couple of weeks or so. We've been working on this with IT, with our grants division, and several other divisions within the city. This is going to be used both by our city and our partners for inbound and outbound grants. So everything that I'm talking about will be housed within this system, as well as our grant writer applying for grants outside. So federal grants, state grants, county, private, things like that. This will increase efficiency, tracking, compliance, and reporting. So the next steps, we are getting close to the end here. We're hoping for a March 11th City Council approval. On the right side, there's definitely more to be done. Once these are approved, we will be executing contracts, setting up project setup meetings, conducting on-site monitoring to make sure some of the projects completed in the past were done correctly. We're going to be finalizing our year 1 Aurora 1 project guidelines, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And then hopefully in December of 2025, everything will be 100% spent. So as I mentioned, there's more to come. Plans and action and program development for 2025. We're trying to take the findings of our 5-year plan, affordable housing strategy, and pending homelessness prevention strategy by releasing several new projects and proposals. So on all the way to the left in the dark blue is an enhancement to our down payment assistance program. We've been seeing a major decline in the number of clients we can assist with our current down payment assistance program. We currently provide up to $5,000 for closing cost assistance. What we're finding is the folks who qualify for the program, households making under $90,000 for a family of 4, they can't afford a home with an affordable payment. So they're coming to us and their payment up front is just way more than we can consider affordable. And unfortunately, we have to deny them. What we're proposing here is to utilize some of the home funds that I talked about, some of the older dollars, as well as our Aurora 1 dollars to really enhance that program, to provide up to $20,000 for down payment assistance. Now the key here is this won't be a grant, this will be a deferred lien, so this would help you get in with an affordable payment. But if 5 or 6 years down the road you decide to sell, that money would come back to the city to then reinvest for hopefully new homeowners or a new program that the city is potentially undertaking.
So for the lifetime of the mortgage, then they have to pay it back?
So it'll be deferred as long as they're in the home or they use it as their primary residence. So it could be for 10 years if they decide to sell. It could be for 30 or 40 years potentially. We do have some loans that come back that are from the late 70s and early 80s, and we can then reinvest those dollars into new programs. With that, the light gray, we'll be soliciting a couple partners to have HUD certified housing counselors. That is a requirement of the home program to go through a certified housing course, essentially. It helps you with determining affordability, really just the nuts and bolts of being a homeowner. That will be at no cost to the applicant, and we would be paying out of our home funds, and that would be a nominal fee. The second proposal we're going to be releasing, and all of these we're hoping on March 2nd or March 3rd, whatever Monday is, the first Monday in March, is a call for proposals for agencies that are defined as community development organizations or CHODOs. This is a specific set aside of the home program. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of agencies that meet this qualification within Aurora. However, we are willing to work with some who might meet those qualifications. It's based on your service area as well as your board makeup and a few other items. But the goal is to preserve and expand affordable housing. In the middle, we have affordable housing lease-up and rental assistance. So on the left side, we have a lease-up assistance program. In all of our planning, going back to the home ARP implementation, affordable housing plan, consolidated plan, and homelessness assistance program, we heard the same thing over and over. We have folks in shelters who have the means to be self-sufficient, but because of potentially their address that they list as, let's say, Hesed House, for example, a prior eviction, maybe a prior criminal record, or a credit score, they are oftentimes passed up in what is a very, very competitive rental market. So we're looking for ways to possibly even the playing field by providing some type of lease-up assistance program. We still are designing that program, but the first step is to try and find a partner, such as Hesed House or another provider who works with folks who are maybe homeless or on the verge of homelessness, to get them in safe, decent, and sanitary housing. And then on the right side, we are looking for a partner for tenant-based rental assistance. So we'll be releasing a request for proposal. So this is similar to the Aurora Housing Authority model, where a tenant would pay 30% of their gross income, and then this TBRA fund would pay for the remaining 70%. We need a partner as well as landlords who are willing to partner with us. And the goal is to transition folks to becoming self-sufficient. So, you know, after a year or two, we'd want to check in to see where they're at. And ideally, they income graduate out of this program to become self-sufficient. The next couple here, the Cool Seniors program, we are attempting to design programs to let seniors age in place. So this would be for the purchase and installation of window unit AC units. So we're working on designing and releasing a call for proposals for that. And then the last two, we have another request for proposal for opioid use disorder grant to be released. This is part of a settlement from the state of Illinois. We're expecting maybe 5 to 7 applicants to award grants somewhere between $25,000 and $100,000. A couple of eligible activities is to prevent misuse, outreach support, as well as support people, as well as the agencies coming out of treatment. And then lastly, the Impact Genome Reporting Tool. We have a free trial with our partner to really try something different in the way that we capture metrics and performance outcomes. This is going to compare like outcomes, not only with the city, but from across the country, so we can really see how these dollars are impacting and you know, if the dollars are being spent in the best way possible. So with that, I know that was a lot. You know, your packets were, there was a lot in there, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. You know, and look forward to hitting the ground running not only with the proposals we talked about today, but the new projects that we're talking about for, you know, the remainder of 2025.
Well, thank you, Chris. I just want to say by beginning the discussion here with the committee that I want to thank you and your staff, Amy and Adam, for all the hard work you guys put in on this. Your staff report is voluminous, but very informative at the same time. So I know you guys put in a lot of hours, and we appreciate that. So.
Well, thank you. And, you know, we worked with the mayor's office, Alex Alexandru, Mayor Irvin, certainly other members of our community services staff, and then, like I mentioned, Vivian Ramirez, Adam Grubbs, and Amy Monroe, who did a lot of heavy lifting on this.
Yeah, appreciate it. So, any questions of the committee? Alderman Donnell?
Yeah, we talked a little bit before the meeting about the funding for street repair was cut in half. Do you know, is that going to affect the engineering proposal? This is very popular to take care of our roadways. And with half the money, are we going to be able to pick those funds up somewhere else, or some of these monies used to be earmarked for certain areas as well? Do we have less of those areas, I guess?
Certainly.
Sorry, a lot of questions.
We, the CDBG funds for street resurfacing is always on top of the normal investment from engineering, which comes from various resources. I know Mr. Scroth can talk more about that. We take our, in this case, $250,000, and in some years, $500,000 in years past, and we try to spread those out and invest those in income qualified census tracts. So we work with our engineering team. For us, it makes sense to highlight them all in one area because of the various steps that are completed, such as an environmental review. But for now, we're looking at 250,000, and that number has fluctuated in years past. So during the pandemic, we completely eliminated that 500,000 and invested in some basic needs activities. The other thing that we look at is typically when we fund street resurfacing activities, we use older money that we can immediately invest. HUD sometimes runs a little bit late, so we didn't get our funding until I think October last year, well past the time that the street resurfacing contract had been bid and implemented. So this is a way for us to get funds out the door a little bit quicker. And it also depends on the competitiveness of other applications that we receive. So in years where we might have applications that are a little bit lighter, we might be able to invest a little bit more in some of our infrastructure needs like street resurfacing. In very, very competitive applications, we try and spread the money out as fast as we can and to the best that we can. One other note, CDBG funds are dropping annually, unfortunately. So 5 years ago, we were getting $1.5 million, and this year, if things stay the same, we're going to be looking at maybe 1.2, and that's a big if, which we're monitoring every day. So with the cost of doing business going up and our dollars going down, sometimes those are some tough choices we have to make.
Is that because of the census?
Not entirely. The formula allocation is based off of many, many, many factors. So
Well, one of them is population.
So one of those is population. There's overall poverty rate. There's comparing all of the different other jurisdictions or entitlements in counties. One other thing is anytime a city reaches over 50,000, they can become their own entitlement, which then further creates another slice of the pie. The same thing for counties. When you increase over 200,000, you can become your own entitlement rather than having your dollars maybe go to the state or another county. So as you continue to slice those pieces of the pie, that could also impact things as well.
Alderman Garza?
I have a question, Chris, and line 24 for the Aurora Legion travel baseball for the kids. What is the reason they deny? Because last time they have what they asking for 9,000, so they denied totally. What is the reason for on the 24, number 24?
Certainly. So we looked at these applications in many different ways, trying to be as fair and transparent as possible. So in some cases, like line 25, Aurora Stars Travel Baseball, that was a second application from the same entity. So we felt in that case, we decided to deny. For line 24, there's many factors that go into an application. Certainly, the quality, ability to serve Aurora residents, the numerous factors that I talked about. So I don't have the exact specifics on this one on why we chose to deny. Some applications were substantially incomplete, so those were easy ones. Some were just not eligible based on their service area. So, in this instance, anybody that was denied, we looked at every different way on how we could or could not fund them. Some of the applications, they were simply late. In our workshop, we highlighted many, many times, due date October 4th, 5 p.m., no exceptions. And unfortunately, we received applications past that date. So in order to be fair with everyone, we decided to deny.
So when they apply and you guys review the application, if they missing some information and they already passed the due date, so it's still able to bring the information or no?
In some instances, we've asked for clarifications. The ones that were substantially incomplete, we did not allow them to submit. 5 of their questions were blank. They were missing half the attachments. In those instances, that was a denial. In some instances, it was just a matter of us clarifying a question that they had answered, and their application was deemed satisfactory.
Okay. Thank you.
And Chris, are you concerned with future potential funding changes that may be coming out of Washington, D.C.? And if so, have you heard anything that's maybe possibly considered?
So I have not heard anything. We are continuing to monitor every day. At this point, we are carrying on as if we're at the same time as last year or really any year. All of our 2025 numbers are estimates. With CDBG, that number has been trending downward. With home, it's varied. In some years, we've gotten 50% more maybe than we were expecting, and then in other years, we've gotten a 10% drop. So if those numbers are significant, we would come back to City Council to amend our recommendations if we don't have enough contingency dollars or if potentially a program was eliminated.
Okay. And I see where the Historical Society is being funded, but not to the tune of what they requested, $35,000. They requested, I think it was like 60. They were allocated 50,000 last year. And I'm noticing at these grant requests over the years that the dollar amount that's being requested by the Aurora Museum, by Historical Museum, for example, have not been fully funded. They've been getting lesser amounts. And part of the understanding when they purchased the building, I think it was in '93 or so, the city was then giving them a grant of $150,000 a year. And over the years now, we've slowly been whittling that away. Is there a method to this? I mean, it's not that they don't need money. Is the reason why we continue not to allocate what we had been allocating for many number of years?
Certainly. So we are seeing a record number of applications every year. In years past, museums have kind of been on their own island of review. With the closure of SciTech, that left only 2 museums left. We decided, because of the number of applications that we're getting and the dollars that were available, we wanted to put everyone on a level playing field, which is why they were under the maximum amount of $35,000. So last year, for pretty much everyone besides museums, the maximum amount was $25,000. This year we raised it up to $35,000, and that's where the recommendation of $35,000 came. There would be no way we could award $150,000 given our pool and number of applicants.
The museums in downtown are so much a part of the downtown economic renaissance, if you will, that we've been successfully, I think, creating over the years. It's a shame if they can't be allocated more monies to help fund their operations and what they're doing on behalf of our community and the visitors that come to downtown Aurora and visit, our history, so to speak. So.
Well, and we're always refining our process. We're getting ready, at least the first phase of putting all of our applications online. Within that, we want to update our policies and procedures, and with that comment, we can certainly revisit our allocation method for 2026.
And I now know some of the funding levels have been cut because the allocation of monies from the casino has been lessened over the years from what we were originally getting. I mean, we were getting almost $16 million a year, I think it was, at some point in time overall. And as that revenue has dropped, so has the ability to expend money. And that's one of the reasons why, in discussing things earlier, that we decided to use CDBG money for street overlays, because after the Great Recession, we were, again, getting a hit on the casino revenue, and we needed more money for streets, and that's where that money came from. We had stopped doing that when the casino came out of CDBG funding. So I understand times change and you have to adjust accordingly. But like I say, the downtown museums are a big part of what we're trying to create in our community. So both the Fire Museum and the Historical Society. And I have another follow-up question to what I asked last year, which with regard to the Collier Center. Once again, their request has been denied. Are they doing something wrong with their request, them and Echo Development?
So we look at a number of factors in application. Completeness and quality of application is certainly one of those factors. We look at when an application has been substantially completed, is it submitted on time? We look at their budget, leveraging of sources. We do offer to meet with folks who have been denied. We've had several of those calls and meetings over the past month or so. We will continue to extend and offer that for anyone who has received funding. We've had folks who have received lesser dollar amounts who have met with us, and we've received inquiries and meetings for folks who have been denied. So we will continue to offer that to anyone who wants to meet with us.
Did either one of those organizations reach out to you with that request? sent out?
Not for 2025. We did meet with Echo in person in the summer of 2024, and in that instance, their application was submitted incomplete past the deadline. So we conveyed that message to them, certainly offered any technical assistance that we can. One of the things we don't do is we don't proof and read an entire application out of fairness to the other applicants,
Sure.
but we're happy to answer questions on a particular question, or if they're having trouble with an attachment, we're happy to do that, and we'll continue to offer that. But at this time, I don't believe Echo or Collier has met with us or reached out to us.
They have not, huh?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right, appreciate it. And then I see the VNA was denied as well this year.
So in that instance,
35,000.
as I mentioned, the home ARP funds were signed in 2024. VNA was a recipient of those dollars in the amount of $200,000. They still have a significant reserve of those dollars, and the application was for similar use. So in that instance, we felt they had stable funding for 2025. We do have quite a bit of reserve funding of home ARP, so that was the reason for the denial in that instance.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Lash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on what Alderman Seville was bringing up about the applicants that are missing a few things, what is our proactive step there? We proactively call them, we proactively email them.
Well, many of the applicants, I'd say 90% all submit on the last day. So it is hard for us to go through all of those to make sure that that everything's there. It takes quite a bit of time to go through all the applications, all the attachments. So we might not even know an application has been substantially submitted incomplete until several weeks into the process. So it would be at that time that we would determine the application is incomplete and we are recommending for denial. A lot of that will change,
It
though.
might make sense to build in a 2-week period where there is a soft deadline and then sort of a corrective period or something like that. I would think, because any one of these could make a minor error, and that time to correct, to me, I think that something like that needs to be built into the timeline and the process.
It is certainly something we could factor in for 2026. Like I said, we are switching to an online platform next year, which I hope will, if you have a field that is required to answer, you can't submit an application unless you've completed all the fields. In the past, we have had folks who have not uploaded any attachments or the right attachments, so it's not a 100% fail-proof plan having it as an online platform. But I am open to looking at different ways to make sure that we're maximizing the number of applicants. And there wasn't a lot that submitted past the deadline. An online platform won't help you with that, but in some instances, maybe where they didn't complete a part of the application or a portion of the attachments were left blank, something like you're saying could potentially work. So we're open to that.
I just feel like we did this last year and we're having very similar situation. And it sounds like maybe some form of meeting, which I'm not sure if you guys proactively reach out or if the applicant needs to have a follow-up meeting with you at some point. And then I had some other questions. The Sunnymer masonry project, what kind of facility is that? Is that a private facility? It's a $60,000
It's a nonprofit facility.
nonprofit senior living. Okay. And I also saw that we moved the Quality, Quad County Urban League over. Any reason for that? Is that a long-term move? Because that is probably what's one of the things that's making us shrink the quality of life grants a little bit, is if we're moving some of these over. And then some of these programs or nonprofits actually gained in their budget, and others lost pretty significantly. Alderman Seville brought up the historic museum. I know that they're struggling, and eventually, right, these just dry up and they cease to exist, which it plays an important role in our community, I think, if they don't get the adequate funding.
Certainly. So we are, we're always refining our process. For some folks who received less amount of funding, it might not have been because their application was worse than last year. It could be because other applicants improved on their applications, so they fell a little bit lower on the totem pole or tier. In the instance of Quad County, it made sense to move them over to quality of life. Because I mentioned we have that 15% cap for public service for CDBG, and just the reporting requirements as kind of having almost dual programs within their project, it made more sense. In years past, we have had Quad County on CDBG and Quad County in quality of life. This year, it made more sense to just have them housed in quality of life. But in future years, we're open to moving folks from quality of life to CDBG and vice versa, and potentially even the home ARP if it makes more sense. Over the last several years, we had a bit of buffer dollars when we had our CARES Act money. That finally ran out, but we were able to fund a fair amount of our public service folks out of that fund, which really freed up quality of life and the 15% cap for public service. So we've kind of been crunched a little bit. And the decisions are hard, like you mentioned. Everyone, their job on the application is to demonstrate need, and we can do the best that we can based on our site visits, meetings, the way they answer their applications, their attachments, their audit reviews. Some have gotten more funding, some have gotten less, and some have stayed level. But that's not to say that'll stay the same, especially if we make changes potentially to our application for 2026. There's always pros and cons of doing all of that.
Okay, and then my only other thing is, what level does your office work to sort of look and coordinate with those that provide overlapping services? Oh, and I had one more question after that. To try and reduce funding for, so like the Historic Society they only do one thing. We don't have anybody else in the city that does that one thing, versus we have a number of food pantries and other direct aid, which are all important and all do things. I'm just curious what we do to try and consolidate some of those overlapping services.
So for 2025, one of the newer things that we are going to do is to hold quarterly, at this point they're going to be, I think, virtual, just to try and increase the amount of attendance. But it will be a requirement of their contract to attend these virtual meetings. So this will be anyone who is receiving a quality of life grant will need to attend a certain percentage of those meetings. We're hoping that's going to spur partnerships, collaboration, and potentially even reduce, duplication. In many of these instances, you are correct. We have multiple food pantries, so when we can, we provide our community resource guide to everybody. We encourage collaborations, further partnerships. And in some instances, there are just different, educational programs available. So maybe an after-school program, a summer program where there is some overlap. There are specific questions within the application where they need to tell us about that, how this isn't a duplication of services, who they're collaborating with, and that's a scoring component. For a lot of our new applicants, they lost points on that, either because they're new in the city and they couldn't really name who they were partnering with or who were collaborating with. So in those debrief meetings, we provided follow-up to, depending on what their service was. So we met with a provider who was looking to provide domestic violence, assistance. I don't believe either they didn't end up applying or we denied them, but we provided the agencies and contact information so they can follow up for future collaboration and partnerships.
My last question was about the after-school programs. Are you looking at, is that primarily going to be CIS, or I know another organization that had their funding reduced was African American Men of Unity. They work in that space. Are there any other nonprofits, or is it primarily going to be CIS that we're looking at?
So our goal is to open the door up, through a formal request for a proposal. It could be, we want to see who else is out there that potentially has the capacity and would be able to, partner with the city and our school districts. So CIS will be the main after-school provider for the remainder of this semester And then for fall of 2025 is when we'd be looking to have, a new agreement in place. So more information, to come on that.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions of the committee? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Garza, is there a second? Second by Alderman Bill Donnell, is there, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, motion carried, 4-0. Okay.
Thank you.
And the second one, 25-0075, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Bill Donnell. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, motion carried, 4-0. Any other business to come before the PHS&T committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Garza, second by Alderman Lash. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye opposed. We are adjourned at 4-0, 5:02 PM. Thank you, one and all.